90 years ago today, a machine with the serial number K5054 rolled onto a runway. It was only a prototype, an experiment in aluminium and ambition. But when it lifted into the air, aviation changed forever. Today, we celebrate 90 years of the Spitfire. And it feels fitting that today we complete something of our own, the Spitfire Magneto, the final piece of the AuthentiKit Universal Hub, primary flight and engine controls. A small tribute to a very big legacy. Welcome back, fans of AuthentiKit. So, on this auspicious day of the 5th of March, 2026, we're building the Spitfire Magneto. This is the final input, completing our Universal Hub primary flight and engine controls. I need to give a shout out and a credit to Higgins. He did the original design to make this faithful replica of the original Air Ministry 5C/548 Magneto. So as I said in the intro, this is the final input to our Universal Hub, and it goes in H7. Now, have you got your PFEC vinyl sticker yet? Mine arrived in the post yesterday. I uploaded the design to Teespring and Fourth Wall, so if you'd like one of your own, you just need to visit one of the links in the description and you can order one from them. So, let's put it on, eh? Very handsome indeed. Well, folks, this is it. With the Magneto, we now complete Chapter 1 of our Spitfire story. We began this journey way back in December 2020 with the release of the first Spitfire flight stick. Then we added the throttle, followed by the elevator and rudder trim wheels. Flaps were next, and then the chassis, or gear lever, which is one of my favourites. We've got Higgins to thank again for the gun sight, with the alternate H8 option of rudder pedals. And now we have the Magneto. Now, I know a few of you are wondering why it took so long. Versions of this Magneto have been around on our Discord for ages. Well, one of the reasons is that for me, the control itself is only part of the picture. My ambition is that one day I'll don a VR headset and I'll reach out into the virtual world, my hands and arms embodied in VR, until, in thin air, I close my grip around the Magneto or the throttle, and it's suddenly, unmistakably real. So to make sure everything is in just the right place, I also need a suitable mounting system. Now we've got the monitor stand arrangement for throttle, stick, and so on, and it works really well. Now for controls that are in the instrument panel reference plane, we've got the Instrument Panel Mounting System, the IPMS. And this puts the blind flying panel in just the right place, and probably more importantly, the flaps lever. But you can see the Magneto needs to mount below the desk. So that's where a new option was needed. And this is how it works. This plate screws to the underside of your desk, and then with just one twist, it's rock solid. I'll show you more about that later, but for now, let's get building this flight control. Okay, it's time to build a Magneto, folks. We've got our instructions, our assembly instructions. They come from the download website. And we've got our wiring diagram, both pretty simple. This is not a complicated build. We need some tools. No, not tools like that. You know that this is kitchen table stuff. It's not workshop stuff. We're just talking a pair of scissors, a little screwdriver, a little pointy flat bit like that. The usual PH1, PH2 screwdrivers. So if you've got the starter kits, you've got these bits already and you printed those things. And you may want a little task light just to throw a bit of light at some of the tiny things. That's what we're talking about with tools. And you won't need a lot of time either. This is not a complicated build. And we need some printed parts, just 2 colors this time. Some parts that you'd probably want to print in black, although actually these internal things can kind of be any color, and some parts to print in a kind of silvery gray. And now let me tell you about this. This is the fascia plate, and you can see that debossed we have Magneto #1 and so on. And in fact, what I've also done here is I applied ironing on the top layer, so that's why that top layer is very, very smooth, if you can just sort of see that. So it's debossed, which means we can use our usual technique of rubbing white silicone or white decorator's cork in there and then wipe it off, even easier because I've ironed that surface, and you'll get some nice lettering. But this also suits very well the two-color approach. You don't need a two-color printer for this. You just print up to that layer in black, put a pause into your slicer, and then you can do a filament change to white and then print in white. I'm going to include both files in the download so you can do it kind of either way. So those parts will build you an Air Ministry Spitfire Magneto, but there are some other parts because we've got the mounting system, haven't we? And these are the parts you need for that, and they're also in the download in a separate folder. Black's probably a good color for those. I happen to do that in silver for some reason. So you just need those as well, and they will help you set the mounting to your desk. Hardware, very, very simple. Not much to it at all. I think SimKit Supplies is doing this kit for about £8.50, so it won't break the bank if you use them for it. Right, so where are we up to? I've talked about the tools we need. As I suggest, double check your printed parts. The print batches will tell you everything. It'll describe them all, so you know what name refers to what. If you're sourcing yourself, the bill of materials tells you what to get and where you can get it. And I think I've just talked about the pre-assembly steps, haven't I, with the decorator's cork approach. Yeah, one thing about this, sometimes you really want to do this kind of, that kind of filling in type stuff at the start before assembly. Really, we're talking about this version, aren't we? But in this case, it's quite easy to assemble it if you're impatient and you just want to kind of see it. And then take that off, put the white in and put it back on again. It doesn't really involve a massive disassembly to do that. So that's why I say here you can choose to do that preparation now or do it later. Step 1, we've got two almost identical, very, very close to being identical, case halves. They're called case 1 and case 2, and they've got these debossed numbers on the top. So we're going to start with number 1, and number 2 is pretty much the same thing. So start with number 1. Step 2, we're going to assemble this micro switch that attaches to this case, and it uses leg press 1 and 2. Now again, there are two very similar things when it comes to these leg presses. Let's put the pairs together and then we can deal with them together. If you look closely, in fact against the white probably helps, they're pretty much mirror opposites. Yeah. But one of them, just to make it more distinctive, has two little bumps on the top. That's purely to help you identify that that goes with side 2. And again, you've got these leg press lids, and they're also kind of mirror images, and one's got two little bumps on. So the one with two little bumps is the one that goes with that. So let's put that to one side. And then now we've got this. So that's leg press 1, and then that's the lid that goes with it. So fit the micro switch into leg press 1 so that the point of the leaf, the end of the leaf, goes towards the slopey edge, that slopey edge, like that. So it goes in like that. Now we take a couple of 10cm lengths of silicone wire, one black, one green. So there's one that I've measured at 10 or thereabouts, and there's our black one. And we strip off 5mm from each end, and that's just a little thing you do with your fingernail, like that. And like that, and we're over the page. So we give the exposed wires a good twist, and then we slide it through one of these ferrules. So those are the ferrules. Slide it over like this, and then bend it back so it won't fall off. There's one. I'll do the other one now. This is where you might want to use the task light. I've got lots of light for filming here, so that makes it easier, but You won't, so I recommend point a fair bit of light at it. Okay, tilt the micro switch a little so you can get at the leg. So by that, I mean tilt it that way, up a little bit. There we go. So the legs go a little bit clear of those channels that they're in. And attach the black wire via the ferrule to the leg opposite the slopey edge. So this one here. So we slide that on. And it should slide on like that. And then the green one in the middle. And that goes on like this. So make sure it's over the leg so you can see some of the leg. And then reseat the micro switch. Now there's something you're going to do later, but you might as well check it now, and that is that the holes that are in the micro switch align with the holes in the back. And they do look like they are. Yep, we'll say more about that in a second. Now press the silicon into the channel. That just sort of holds it in place while we do the next bit, which is to crush the ferrule. And that's where we need our little screwdriver here. And we give it a good old crush. So start with a little flattening like that. And then sort of across the channel almost, so that you make sure you really get it pressed. And then a little tug, just to make sure it's in there. Now you shouldn't have to worry too much about these ferrules or wires coming loose, because we're gripping the wires in lots of different ways. Okay, let's go to number 8, what I was talking about earlier. Now you see that the center, it's a bit easier on this side. You can see that the center hole is slightly low inside that concentric ring. I'm going to press this up a bit. Another way of looking at it is that this edge here should be fairly flush. What you don't want, and it's possible because nothing holding it really, is that the micro switch is sticking out beyond the case by, I don't know, a mil or two, but that's fine as it is there. So that was the bit about aligning the holes. Now we get the leg press, and that's this one. And it might not be obvious which way is which. It goes so that the slopey edge goes over the slopey edge. Let me put it on the white paper again. That's how it goes. And then we get a couple of 8mm long M2 screws. They're very small screws, so you need your PH1 screwdriver, and we just start screwing those in. Okay, and you can see that they are going to really hold the silicon and grip it, so that we shouldn't have any trouble of that coming out. And it'll hold the legs as well of the micro switch. So they should come through just to the other side. In doing that, I've kind of pushed the micro switch slightly beyond. I'm going to loosen it a fraction, and then make sure that that micro switch is just sort of pushed flush to the end of the case while I tighten up. That's a bit better. Okay, and those holes are slightly better aligned on the back now. Okay, for the next bit, we're going to need 2 more of the M2 screws, and we're going to fasten this into leg press 1, and it goes at an angle like this. You can see that the holes here have got a slightly slopey edge, and the recess there has got a bit of a conical sort of slope, and that kind of seats the micro switch case and holds it in place. So hold it in place like that with your thumb, and then you can drop one of these, and you should be able to find that, yep, I've got some, just see if it's coming through the back. Yep, and I'll get the other one in before I tighten them up. Right, that's in, and we should start to feel that bite. Yep, that's biting. And we don't want to strip the threads, but no, that's about as far as that will go. But you should be able to get a good grip until the end is almost going flush. Okay, and that should hold in pretty firmly. We're up to step 10. Now, we've got a couple of things which are called ball spring holders, and here they are. They are identical, but they're not symmetrical if you turn them over. You can see on one side, they're all kind of smooth. On the other side, there's this sort of step. And we need to orientate them the right way when we fit them. But for now, step 10 is to pop one of these ball springs into the ball spring holder like that, seat it firmly so it looks like that. And then step 11 is to pop it in here. Now, it's slightly fiddly to put in here. It's not too bad on that side. This leg here sits between these two pieces here, but on this side, it's got a slot behind this sort of protruding bit there. So really, if you kind of start by slotting it in there first, and then just kind of work it in like that, and don't worry about it being at a bit of a wonky angle to start with. Push it down, and then if you look from underneath, you'll see that the holes aren't quite aligned, but if you just push it, you'll see those holes line up like that. And that's how it looks. It's a tight fit against there. It touches the screws, but that's not a problem. And then we get a couple of these tiny countersunk M3s, and we screw that down. It should be quite a nice tight bite that you get there. Yeah, that's good. Okay, nice and firm. And that, did I point out, that stepped bit, it's towards you. Yeah, the smooth bit's away from you. And that's side one. Okay, let's move on to side two. I'll go a little bit quicker here. As it says in the instructions, this is really almost identical to side one, just some minor changes of orientation. Case 2, leg press 2, leg press lid 2. Micro switch, leaf pointing to the slopey bit. 5mm, stripped off a 10 centimeter piece of black wire, and 5mm stripped off a 10 centimeter piece of white wire. Ferrule on each, twist it over, tilt the micro switch a little bit. Black on the end opposite, or the other way of looking at it is that the signal wire, as opposed to the ground wire, which is typically black, goes signal wire in the middle. Although having said that, if you get it the wrong way around, it doesn't matter. It's just a switch. A little screwdriver can help it on. Press the micro switch back in place. Press the silicon into the channels. It'll just hold it there. Make sure there isn't any stray. If there's any loose stray wire, have it point the other way. Make sure the micro switch is pressed firm up towards the wires, and then crush. Good old crush. Really heave into it. Give that just a little jiggle. Yeah, the micro switch feels pretty firmly in place. And then the lid, and align the little lugs. It's kind of like a little dog, isn't it, with little ears. So align that over there. Okay, good. Just checking again that the micro switch isn't slipping away. No, it's not. And we're tightening down. A little bit more tightening to go there. This will really clamp the silicone wires. And that looks flush there. That's good. Got a little bit of stuff here. I'm just going to clear that away. That's just from printing. Probably wouldn't make any difference, but just clear that little bit of filament there. There we go. And then the hole's nicely centered. Now drop it in here. So we're tilting to the left this time rather than to the right, and you can use these little raised bits to seat things. Hold it with your thumb. Yeah, I can feel that biting. Don't want to strip it, but get as much as I can. Yeah, yep, there we go. That's in there. Ball spring. Point the little raised bit towards me. Even though that's mirrored on the left, this still has to sort of negotiate the sticky out bit on the right. So again, start it in there, kind of just, yeah, push it. End's a little bit wonky. And again, the holes don't align, but as I push it over, they align. And the M3s will make sure they're aligned and pull it nice and tight to close the gap up there. Good. Now, as it says here, we're going to put it all together. So we bring the two case halves together. We've got case one on the left, like that. Screw the halves together with a single screw only for now. So we need an M4 8mm. So we've got some 10 mils. And we've got an 8mm. Make sure you use the 8mm. Screw it into the hole on the underside. So one on the left, two on the right. That's the underside. Nearest the base, not the open end. So that's what I mean by that. In here. Good. Good grip there. Not perfect. Okay, so it's sort of held together reasonably well for a little while now. Now we take the RJ plate, and that's this, and a flange screw, an M3 flange screw, and we partially fit it into this joint post here. Okay, like to about that point. Okay, and now we're going to joint these black wires. So we strip off a longer amount, about 15 mil. That much, that'll do it. Or a bit more. And then a 5 centimeter piece, really short piece. And then we take all 3 of these and we twist them all together. And make a little loop. Like that. Loop it around here. Loop it around clockwise is best, because then as you tighten it, you pull the loop tighter onto the flange screw. There we go. Now we strip just 2 to 3 mil. It's better not to have too much exposed wire. That's more than 2 to 3, isn't it? And then we fit them to the RJ45 jack. Black on the left, skip 1 green, skip 1 white. And remember, if you're sourcing yourself, 12548736 is the order that you want on there, because that's what you should have on the other side. If you've got that different, you'll have problems. Okay, it's always easy to do these one at a time. Just get the silicone to hold it, crunch it down, and it's held fairly firmly. Skip 1 green, skip 1 white. So very simple wiring. And we want to just have a quick check that the strip wire is nicely crunched over the teeth, which it is. Then we can put that lid down there, fit the jack into the plate. I've made my wire a little short here, haven't I? I'm going to take the black off now and put it on again afterwards. Let's pop it. There we go, there's the jack in there. Let's check it's holding. Yep, good. And I'll put the black on again now. Okay, that's got it. Now we fit the plate to the case. Now it only goes one way around. If you can see here, there's just a little scoop out, and that is to make some space for the joint post. So that's the way around you want it. Goes in like that. Then we take another of our 8 mils, and on the underside again, same side as before. Okay, and now the fun bit where we fit the fascia plate. Okay, step 30, rest the case on the table with the holes uppermost that don't have screws in and the RJ45 pointing away from you. And then turn the case up so the RJ45 is sat on the desk, and you should have case 1 on your left. Now take switch 1 and 2, these are identical, and peg 1 and 2. Put any peg into any switch. It might need a little bit of a push, and I don't know if we'll be able to see this on the camera, but it needs to go fully in. So give it a good old push, because there's a little dimple in there. You should be able to see that. And that needs to line up with these holes. So just get these 2 pegs. Yeah. Seat them firmly into the switches. So now we've got that kind of thing. And now, bringing my original Spitfire trim wheel back into service as a little parts caddy, we need to put these dowel pins into the slots, and they should go in such that you get just a little bit, just that sort of amount showing. A bit more, I think we get a little bit more on the other side. Yeah, a little bit more going there. There we go. That's the sort of thing we'd expect. Now put the switches into these cavities so that the protruding lug sticks out to the side. And I think it's easier if it's just rested in that way, because you're pressing against the ball spring here. So if you put it that way, it lifts a little bit. But if you put it that way, it will just sort of seat in. Like that. And now sit the fascia metal, as it's called, over the top, like this. And screw the fascia body down on top of it with the last of your M3 countersunk screws. And that should give you a very positive action magneto switch. That's a great sound, isn't it? Now, this little bit of M3 screw here is quite a scruffy old thing. I don't know how that got into my set of parts. But don't worry about that, because what I recommend you do now is just get a Sharpie, a black Sharpie, and just sort of black this out. Or some black paint, whatever you've got to hand. Just looks a little bit nicer if you do that. And there we have it, an Air Ministry 5C548 style Magneto. Now, we've got a couple of holes at the top because, well, if you're fitting this into a cockpit, you know, a proper kind of cockpit that you've made, that's exactly what you need. But for our desk mounting system, we've left these two holes free because we're going to add that. So we get the fixed plate and we screw it to the top with those 10mm screws. And now we drop the Zeus key, and that's this thing, into the fixed plate from above and align it so the straight sides show 9 o'clock, so like that. Then if you hold it down and take the lever and position that also at 9 o'clock, so it goes on like that. Now turn it over and get the last 10mm M4 countersunk screw, and let's get that tightened up. Now, if it's a very tight fit, if you're really heaving on that screw, there's a risk that this tiny lug, you might be able to see there, will snap off. It's a kind of lock limiter, but it's not super strong, so don't rely on that to just keep heaving. Kind of put your finger there and brace it a bit that way, just to avoid putting too much stress on that little lock lug. And then, yeah, maybe a bit tighter. Yeah, it should move just with a little bit of friction. Because now, with that attached to the underside of your desk, the process of fitting it is as simple as that. And just as easy to remove. So well done, folks. That is the Magneto 5C548 with the underdesk mounting system. Please think about sharing a photo if you've made it. It's a nice looking item, very authentic. And if you feel proud of the one you've made, why not upload a photo to our gallery, the same place, the same website where you got the download of the files. And if you'd like to see it mount to an actual desk, this is how it goes. So how do you fit this thing to your desk in the first place? Well, to answer that, I'm just going to show you a few seconds of a video I made in December, where I explained it all as part of my Comanche PA24 video. And if you look in the description, I've made a link to that video to exactly the right section where I fit this to the desk using the alignment tool just to position it exactly the right offset back from the edge of the desk, and this hole drilling guide so that you get those holes drilled just perfectly and get just the right alignment. So check that out for the full details. So that's the Magneto built. Of course, it needs the universal hub, and I'll cover that in a second. But what I wanted to cover first is this. What do you do if you followed my video and things don't quite go together the way they just did for me? Well, we've got a support section on our website. Just go to the very same page where you found these download instructions. Scroll down, hit Get Support, and straight away there'll be a few troubleshooting tips. There's also a link to a dedicated support forum for the Spitfire, so look there first because someone else may have had the same problem and shared the answer. And if they haven't, there's a button, Start Support Query. But don't just say, hey, it didn't work. Look at these guidance points, so you include the extra information that we'll need to help you sort it. I'm not going to say a huge amount about the wiring because for 99.9% of you, this is not your first AuthentiKit control. And if it is, I would strongly suggest you start with the Spitfire trim wheels starter kit first. And in fact, the universal hub wiring for H7 is exactly the same approach as we did for the trim wheels H3 and H4, with the only difference that we connect the RJ45 channels to inputs 5 and 6 for the mags, instead of 9 and 10 for the rudder bias and 11 and 12 for the elevator trim. What we'll do now is connect it up to our PC and explain the approach to mapping it to your SIM. So here goes the USB. Let's open the AuthentiKit controller, and nothing showing in any of the buttons. Connects up start and mags, and we should see, because I've got Magneto number 1 on, that we've got 5 on. And if we put 6 on, 6 is on, off, off. Now there's pluses and minuses to this approach in that it's a nice simple design internally, very robust. But generally speaking, the SIM will need different inputs to be able to switch the Magneto on or off. It needs an action to go on and a separate action to go off for both 1 and 2. And that's where we need to use a companion app. Now, if you watched my last video about MobiFlight, we've already designed and released a companion app, and I'll just show a little bit on the screen about this, that is pre-configured. You load it and run it. And when you go on, it will send to Microsoft Flight Simulator a Magneto on for number 1. And when you say off, it sends a number 1 Magneto off. Same for Magneto number 2. We've now, since that video was done, created a second version for DCS and IL2, and it converts this on-off switch into an on action and an off action separately for number 1 and for number 2, and you can map that to DCS. And if I put on the screen right now the mappings that you need, that's what you need to set up in DCS, and then run MobiFlight to generate these pulses. The other thing that's contained in the Spitfire VJoy config, as well as the MSFS config, is a set of mappings for your trim wheels. So it converts the pulses of an encoder to an axis, which is perfectly calibrated to your SIM. If you're in MSFS, then get the MSFS version and it will send the data straight to MSFS, so you don't need to do any setup at all. If you're in DCS or IL2, it'll convert to an axis, and then you need to map the axis to your SIM. So I'll put on screen right now the mappings you need for DCS trim wheel axis mappings. And that, folks, brings this video to a close. This small control represents a big milestone for AuthentiKit, but as one chapter closes, another one opens. Now that we've wrapped up this universal hub and these controls, we've cleared the way for controls like this. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll be back.